Welcome to the Modern Application Development Screencast. In this short screencast, we will learn how to secure our app using authentication and authorization. Before we start, open the following applications on your Ubuntu desktop so that you can work along with me. Browser, Firefox or Chromium is fine. An editor, Sublime is what I'm using. You can use any of those. Terminal, and make sure you have Python. And I'm going to start with the project that we had left last time. I'm going to continue from there just to make it faster and easier, right? I've already made a copy of that and I'm going to use the same copy. Okay, before we start, let's differentiate between what is authentication and what is authorization. Authentication is the process of identifying and verifying the user. For example, if I say I'm Thejesh GN, a way of identifying and verifying that I am Thejesh GN is called authentication. There are many ways to do it. The most common one that you would have seen is username and password. Authorization is the process of a specific user, which is me or anyone, has an ability to do certain actions or the right to do certain actions. For example, if I am Thejesh Jain, I have the ability to create articles on this blog. If I am X, I have only ability to create only comments. Those are authorizations. Now, authorizations can be based on role, and then it's called role-based access control. For example, every user will have a role. Some users will have admin roles, some users will have commenter roles, some users will have author roles. And based on their role, they'll have specific abilities. For example, admin can do anything, author can write an article and comment, a commenter can only comment and cannot do anything else. So authorization involves authentication by implicit, because you need to identify the user first and then give his rights to him, whichever he is allowed to do, whatever actions is allowed to do according to the rights he has in the application based on the role. In this case, that is called RBAC or role-based access control. Now let's implement both authentication and authorization in the app that we had created earlier. Okay, we already have the app copied here, like I said, and I also have the database open here. Right, we're going to make some changes to both database and to the app. I'm going to go step by step. First of all, we're going to install an add-on called Flask-Security. It's one of the popular ways to implement authorization and authentication in Flask. It implicitly includes Flask plugin, which gives you authentication. So let's start by opening the command prompt, and let's source our local .env. Okay, I'm sourcing the local virtual environment. I'm going to install a Flask-Security plugin. Okay, it's installed. I'm going to install another Python package called email validator, which is going to be used for validating email. And I'm also going to install another package from Python called Bcrypt. Bcrypt is a one of the hashing algorithms. We are using it to hash our passwords when we store in the database, right? And hence I'm using that. We'll see how to do that. If you want more details on what is Bcrypt and what's the Bcrypt hashing algorithm involved, you can search Bcrypt. Okay, you can read about, what is the hashing. First of all, you should probably read about hashing. It's one-way hashing. So you can, once you hash any text, it's uniquely it's unique for every text, but you can't reverse it back. For example, if you have the hash, you can't get the text back, especially a cryptographic hash. Bcrypt is one of the most popular hashes that's used to hash the passwords, so that even if the password field gets leaked, someone can't get back the password easily, right? Okay, let's go back to our application. Okay, so we have installed all the packages currently, right? Now we're going to make some changes to the database, because our user table was very simple. We didn't have password field, etc. So we are just going to make it a little more extended, so that we can have other fields. Now there is a reason why I'm going to do that, because to easily implement authentication and authorization, Flask-Security gives some classes already called user model and role model. We are going to extend the models of the Flask-Security. Currently we are extending only DB models, right? If I go here, currently I'm just extending the DB model. I'm going to extend like a Flask-Security's model as well, and hence I'm going to rename some things and add some more columns to suit my need to implement the security. Let's actually modify this, and then we can modify the tables. Since we are not using migrations, we are going to just make changes here in the models.py as well as in the tables. Okay, let's change the models here. First, I'm going to add a role table. I'm going to add a role table. It's straightforward, and it extends roles mixin, which comes from Flask-Security. This is what I was saying. We need to extend it. I mean, you could do it without extending it, then you'll have to do much more. I am going with the default implementation, which is simple and straightforward and easier to implement. So I'm going to extend this. My user table is going to extend user mixin. Now I'm going to make some change. I'm going to convert user ID into just ID. It's going to be same primary key. Everything else is going to be same. I'm going to make username non-unique. We don't have name. We could just use username as name, but I'm just going to make it non-unique. We'll still keep the email as unique, and we are going to use that for all our logins. And then I'm going to add a field called password. Okay, which is going to store the password, actually hashed password, not the password. I'm going to add a field called active to see whether the user is active or not, right? And then I'm going to add a relation, because when I said user will have roles based on which we'll give certain accesses, so we have to relate user to role. Now we are going to have many to many, like relation between user and roles table, hence we're going to add that relationship here, right? So I'm adding roles field here, which is linked to users table through another table called roles user. So I'm just going to create a table for roles users, right? It's a simple table. I'm just going to create directly. You could create even class user model, but here it's straightforward, so I'm just going to create it, right? Okay. Now, since we changed ID here in the user, we are going to change everywhere where there's a foreign relationship, just to make sure that we are not breaking any of the foreign relationships here. This one, right? So this is going to become ID, because we have changed the foreign key here. Now we have made all the changes in the models. I'm going to make a similar change in the tables. Just sync that same things. First, let me just change the foreign key relationship for ID, for which actually we can't change it, so we will have to for a while delink it and link it back. This will be ID. I'm just going to remove this foreign key relationship, okay, for a while. Okay, has it been removed? No. Okay, let's go to the right. No, it's not removed. Reset. Okay, now I'll say okay. Okay, it's throwing some error. No modules. Oh, okay, because it has all the search tables and stuff like that, which we had done some indexes, or rather triggers, right? Let's check what are those triggers. So for a while I'm just going to remove these indexes. It's okay if we can't search it, right? You can recreate these, sorry, not indexes, triggers. We can recreate them when we need them. I'm just going to delete them. You can recreate them with the newer column names. Okay, I'm just going to save it. Now I'm going to go back to article authors. I reset it and say okay, it's changed. Now I'm going to go change the user table, right? Modify table. First one is I'm going to make this as ID, and username will be, uniqueness will be removed. Then add password, right? And it will be text, and add active. Okay, and that will be integer, because in SQLite instead of boolean it uses 0 and 1 for boolean, so it uses integer. Okay, so I'm going to save it. All right, that's done. So I'm going to link that back as a foreign key again, because we need that relationship, right? User and ID. Okay. Okay, so that part is done. Now we're going to create a new table called role ID integer and primary key, add name, text, add description. Is it correct? Yeah, description. Okay, and then I create that table. Now I have to create this joining table, roles underscore users, right? Integer role ID and user ID, and they have foreign relationship. User ID has a foreign key to user table and ID column, and role ID has a foreign key relationship to role table and ID. Let's do role and ID. Okay. Okay. From our base point of view, we have set up the database now. So we have all the important columns, and these are the columns as per as per Flask-Security. I mean, we could use other usernames. Then I have to create an attribute, for example, at the user model level called get ID, and then return the ID, which is the primary key. Instead of doing all all that work, I just rename the columns because it becomes much easier to go through the tutorial, as well as much easier to understand as well. Okay, now we are done. Now we need to configure it in our main.py. Let's go to main.py. Okay, we have to import Flask-Security and do certain settings here. Even that is very straightforward. I'm going to import certain things. I'll tell you why I imported them a bit later. Okay, I'm going to import security in some of the data stores from Flask-Security, because we have SQLAlchemy. I'm going to use either SQLAlchemy session user database or just use data store based on the requirement. I think we are going to just use session user data store because we want to use Flask session, right? And then I'm going to do like a import of our user and role models to actually tell the Flask-Security that this is our user model, this is our role model. Now, after we created the app, we are going to set up the Flask-Security as well. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to create an user data store based on our DB session, user and role. We're going to use session user data store. You can go back to Flask-Security and check the differences between what's the difference between session user data store and just user data store. And then I'm going to set up the security based on this Flask user store for this app. And for now, I think I'm kind of done here. Now this should have set up everything, including some of the templates, etc., etc. But now we have to go back and set up some config elements, because Flask-Security is going to read some configurations from the config file and do the setup when it's booting up. So let's do some of the setups, and as I do, I'll tell you what does it mean, right? So let's do first security key. This is used for session creation and cookie creation. So you might have to use like a strong random difficult key, right? And usually you can set it up in environment so that you don't check into the database, or check into the JIT or your code repository. Usually set it up in your environment and read it from the environment here. You can read it from an environment here instead of actually putting directly into a file. And by mistake, if you commit file to JIT, everybody who has access to the JIT will also get to know the secret key, which could be dangerous. Then we'll do password security hash type Bcrypt. There are many options available, but we are going to go with Bcrypt. And then to hash the password, we have to give a key to it, and that's called security password hash. Again, this has to be really super secret or difficult secret. I'm just going to type something. Again, strong, unique, random key or salt, right? You need to put that. Again, you can read this value from environment and use that instead of actually putting into the file here. This is, at least for local environment, is okay. When you actually do a production config, it's always important to read these two values from the OS environment, right? Now I'm going to set up another configuration element called security registrable. Now Flask-Security gives also ability to register a new user, confirm a new user, reset the password, change password, all of those functionalities, and we can disable, enable some of them using these configuration elements. So, and also Flask-Security comes with default templates that we can modify. I'll show you how the default template looks, and it doesn't look great, but it serves the purpose, and then you can go ahead and change or add style to the template, right? I want it to be registerable, so that we can register a new user and then you use the user, like log in using the same user, so we can see that process. Because for the current users we don't have any password. Like if you go actually our current users are useless because we don't have any password, neither they are active. So what we'll do is we'll create a new user and try out some things. That's why I want registerable. For example, if you're building a blog for yourself, and once you're registered, you don't want anyone else to be registered on your site, then you can switch off the registration by registrable is equal to false, for example. Currently, I don't want it to send any emails after the registration is done. As part of Flask-Security, if you give your SMTP configurations like SMTP host, SMTP password, and username, it can send automated mails for example, when the new user registered, or when you actually ask for reset password, it can send a reset password link and stuff like that. But currently I don't want that, so I'm just going to even turn off the registered email, and I'm not even going to put SMTP details, because I don't want any mails to be sent at least as of now. And then another variable called security unauthorized view is equal to none, because if it's unauthorized, I want it to throw default 403 error. For example, if you want if you go to a page or a URL path for which you are not allowed, then it throws an error saying 403 forbidden. So I want that to happen, and I want default page to show up, and hence I'm putting it equal to none. Now there are many more variables and configurations that you can do by going through this page at Flask-Security and reading through each one of them. You can set up your whole authorization and authentication in various ways. So just go through it and select whichever makes sense. I think for us to quickly start, these are the ones which are required. I'm not going to change any of the URL paths or something. Like for example, I am okay with login path to be /login, logout path to be /logout, register path to be /register, etc. So hence I'm not going to change any of those, right? Okay, let's go back to this. So we have done the configurations, we have set up the models, and we have set up the application, right? Let's check once more. Main.py, correct. So we set up the application, everything is done, right? I think we can try start the server. Before we start, I'm just going to add another error handler. This is a Flask error handler called 404 error handler. So whenever there is a 404 error, it will automatically go to 404, page 404, right? So I'm just going to create this page in the templates folder. Right. Page not found, go to main page. Okay, I'm just going to put some dummy message. Okay, so let's start the server and see what happens. So no error. As you would know, all our logs will go to debug log, right? Just some old log. I'm just going to delete that. Right, let's go to the home page. Okay, so it's here. Now let's type some random URL. Let's see if it goes to 404 page. Yeah, it is going to the 404 page. Right. Okay, anyway, let's go back to main.py. Okay, now let's do couple of things. Let's add a sidebar and check whether the user has logged in or not logged in. If the user has logged in, we'll show some message. If the user has not logged in, we'll show some message. Initially, we'll just show some message, a simple message, and we'll improve as we go. For example, since it's enabled now, if you go to /login page, it's not showing anything. Let me just check whether we have missed any configuration, right? So I think I was in just a wrong path, right? Let's run again. Let's save everything. Okay. What we've done now is, we've added @login required for this controller. So, the user will be forced to log in when he actually tries to access it. Let's start local run. Okay. Now, if I try to access it, it throws me in login page. As I told you, like it gives you a default, login view, which is not great, but you can always extend this template and make it beautiful. Right. Similarly, it gives you other endpoints. For example, register will give you register endpoint and many other things. So, and also, like for example, if I enter some random thing, it goes to page not found, go to main page. Previously, I had not saved the file, so that's why it was not loading. Anyway, let's go back to register and try to register an user. Let's say raj@raj.com. I'll just put the password as possible, POSSIBLE, right? I click register. So it got registered and it came to the home page. It won't send an email and other things because I've disabled, like we've seen before that we've disabled all of that in the config, and it's auto confirmed. So if you go to your user page and refresh, there is Raj and there's no username. We can put some username, it's put some password already and it's already active, auto confirmed active. Not auto confirm, active. We are not using at confirmed or confirmation. We have disabled the confirmation currently, right? Yes. Let me just check. We are just using active. Okay. Anyway, so as you can see, password is hashed, right? So you can't get back the password using this hash unless you have knowledge about internal system. That's why this key is very important, and to keep this as secret is very important. Anyway, now we can try to log in. Let's change the name here. Both of them have Raj. Let's say Raj Kumar, right? So it makes it easy. Okay, so now, like for example, I'll reload this. When I click on this, it goes to the page because we already registered and logged in. But let me log out. Okay, now if I click on this, right, let's check. whether that has been changed. No, we didn't do it for this actually, sorry. We did it for feedback, right? So now it asks for the login. Now let's do raj@raj.com, and if I do impossible and click on login, it should log in, but I've given a wrong password. It says it's possible, not impossible. OSSIBLE. So it's logged in, right? So we check the other case also, that if you type the wrong password, it throws an error. Now you've seen how it works, right? Let's go back to the home page. Now what I want to show is when someone is logged in, I want to show their name here on the sidebar and tell them welcome, and show them that they have logged in. If they are not logged in, I want to show them login or register. Okay, so it's quite straightforward to do because Flask-Security exposes an attribute or a variable called current user to all the templates. So you can use that. Now I'm just going to create one single template called sidebar and include it in all the files. Okay, new template sidebar.html, right? So I'm just going to do very simple one, not very complicated one. So here I'm checking if the user is authenticated. Like I said, current user is exposed, and is authenticated is the function or attribute from base class, right? We saw, for example, in our models, we saw user extends, user mixin. So that is authenticated comes from there. Okay, just for your information. And then I'll check current. I'll print the current user's email. We can even print username, right? And say welcome. And we're going to print his role if he has roles. And then you can, since he is already logged in, we'll ask him to log out. Or if he's not authenticated, we'll say him login or register. Okay, now let's go back to this page and refresh it. Okay, we have not included this sidebar into this sidebar part, right? So we have to include that. So let's include in all of the pages like articles and stuff like that, so that it shows up everywhere. Okay, I'm going to include that template here, which is done using include and giving the HTML name or the template name, include template. I'm just going to do the same thing for this page as well, and even for feedback page, all the pages basically wherever we want to show sidebar, right? Okay, now if I do refresh, it says hi Rajkumar, welcome. Your role is empty because currently we are not associated any role to him, and it says logout. And if you click logout, he gets logged out. It shows login or login. Let's see. It's a bug in our sidebar. Okay, we have to change it to register. Okay, so it says login or register. If you want to register, you can go back to register, or if you want to do login, you can go back to login. So go back to login and say raj@raj.com and say possible and say click login. So it should go back to the home page and it show all the details of it, right? So you could now we made it authenticated only for feedback page, right? Oh, sorry. Let's say FEEDBSEK. So this page shows up only if you are authenticated. For example, if I log out and go back to feedback, it won't show. So that is done, like I told you, using this adding this login required to the controller. Now you can add it easily anywhere. For example, even if I want articles by author, I can add it there too, and now if I restart, it's already started. Now let me go back and click on articles by user. Even that requires login. So you can control like that easily any page that you want to protect. Right now, the next level is, for example, I want article by author is accessible to only authors. Let's assume there are two kinds of users, authors and commenters, and articles by authors should be accessible only to author and not to other people. So it should be logged in and it should be accessible to only authors, right? If you're logged in as regular user, you won't be able to access it, right? So let's add a role for this Rajkumar and call him author. Okay, it's done easily. First of all, we'll define two roles by adding into this table. Role number one called author, AUTHO, author role. All right, I'm just going to expand this to make it clear and save it, and then add another table, reader or commenter, right? Just reader role. Okay, so there are two roles, right? And now we can just add a role to the Raj by just adding two roles users. Okay, I mean, you can define all the forms and stuff like that if you want to do it UI way. I'm just doing it from the backend. Let's go to user and see, this is user number 3 and I want to make him an author. Article roles user, we'll just insert a row, user ID 3 will be an author, right? Okay, now along with this you can add another condition as to what role is required. Okay, that is done by adding, just give me 1 second, roles required, and we call it author. Now this checks for whether the user has logged in, and then whether the user has this specific role called author. If it doesn't have that role, it will throw a unauthorized error, right? Let's check that. We don't have a it's already an author. Raj is already an author. Let's log in first and see. Okay, server stopped. Stop the server. Roles required is not defined. Okay, let's import it. I think we have not imported it. Correct. Okay. Okay, started. It's not logged in. Let's log in as Raj. Raj possible. Okay, now you can see here your role is author. We just printed, and you can have multiple roles. We are just, as you can see, we are just pulling it from the model. If you go to our sidebar, we're just pulling it from our model current user. Now roles, which comes from here, roles, and then going one by one and printing it. Nothing special there. Anyway, so is author. Now he should be able to access the author accessible page called articles by author, right, which is this page. Now he can access, right? Now let's quickly change the role of Rajkumar to just a reader and see what happens to this page, right? That you can just quickly do it by what is the role user? It's a role number 2, right? So let's go to role user, role number 2. Now if you add both roles, then he can still access, because you don't need more. I'll come to that as well. There is a important distinction there. So let's see. It says forbidden. You don't have permission to access. Now we can also customize this page the way we have customized our 404 page. Let's do that also. Let's go to main. It's similar error handler. 403 not allowed. Okay, this is 403. I'll create a page in our templates. Just make it in simple HTML. Okay, simple message. Okay, now let's go back to this, and if I refresh this again, it should show our page, right? You're not allowed to access this page. Contact your admin. We can give other button, like let's say go to home page or something like that, if that's useful. Now this is how you control the roles. Now, like I said, there are many ways to check the role. At least two ways. Two important ways to check the roles. Let's just see that. Not this. I'll show you. One is roles allowed and roles accessible, right? Okay, let's check here. Here, roles required and roles accepted. These are the two important ones. I mean, we have already seen login required. We've also seen roles required. Roles required is which specify that user must have all the specified roles. So if there are more than one role specified, he should have both the roles. Let's say if I mention reader and admin, both, or reader and author, both should be there. Roles accepted, any one of the roles is fine. If I say reader, author, editor, and if you belong to any one of the roles or more than one of the roles, it's fine. At least one, right? And this should be all. These are two important ones to distinguish. Okay. Then these are all the default pages that come. Like I showed you, the login page or register page. These are all the template files that comes with the Flask-Security. You can import those templates and override those templates to make it your own, or you can just leave it, if you don't want to change them, right? These are the very important parts of authorization and authentication. This is good to start your your journey into authenticating users. Now there is other process to do like API keys and stuff like that. Here in this case we are using cookies. You can actually look into cookies here, which Flask-Security sets up. Let me just show that to you quickly. You can go inspect and go to application, and you can check cookies here, right? Look, let me just expand this. You can see the cookie here, which is session cookie, right? And let's say if I delete this cookie and if I refresh it, you're logged out, right? So it's cookie based session. I mean, even if you have a RESTful endpoint and it's used just by an HTML page to make AJAX calls, so just RESTful calls, you can still use a cookie based authentication and authorization, or rather cookie based authentication for even RESTful APIs. because ultimately they are just HTTP calls. But if you want to go beyond and have give access to your RESTful APIs through other thick clients or batch applications or other kind of clients, then you might want to use API tokens or API keys and stuff. One of the Flask project that allows you to do that is Flask JWT, and you can use that along with Flask-Security if required, or you can use just Flask JWT extended to give API keys as well as give the login and things. It's set up and run very similar to Flask-Security. I would say you can explore it by yourself and see whether you want to do that. If you really want to expose RESTful APIs to your consumers in every form, this could be a good option, right? Thank you so much. That's all for today.